All right, let's get right back into it. Last night was season two, episode two of The Chosen. I watched it right when it came out, so let's be brief here with a reaction to this episode. Right, so we're introduced to a few more of the disciples. This episode, we've seen some flashbacks, we've seen some flash forwards. This scene is current time, current day, uh, again, first century, but we get introduced to a new character, and you have to listen pretty carefully to figure out who is in the scene. But the name is mentioned there. We hear uh, from Nathaniel. We're introduced to Nathaniel, and we see that his character is portrayed as this hothead architect who all he wants to do is build these elaborate synagogues and places of worship. And he's having a conversation with another man when all of a sudden there's a crash, right? This structural mistake in his plan costs him his job. And then after the normal theme introduction to the show, we are then introduced to Philip. So, of course, if we're reading the Gospels and knowing the Gospels, we know that Philip and Nathaniel have an encounter. So you can kind of get where this episode will eventually wind up. So Nathaniel loses his job and he goes and he sits down right up under a fig tree. So knowing the scriptures, we know where this is going. Nathaniel sets his plans on fire and he cries out to the Lord. He cries out to God, do you hear me? Do you see me? So he's really, really struggling in his life. As far as the majority of this episode, it's really the disciples, right? Having conversation. We're really most of all introduced to Philip as a character. I really like this Philip character as he interacts, especially with Matthew. But we get to see their characters develop quite a bit in this episode, so that is good to see. Of course, Mary Magdalene and Rama are still there, and at this point, they've become more as just kind of a glimpse in the camera's eye. So I don't know what's going on necessarily with them. They do have an interaction with Matthew at some point, but that's probably to be just kind of a passing thing. So we get to know them. We see what they're up to. Their characters are developing, and then of course Jesus shows up a few times. Not there are no miracles or anything. They're just really making plans to see where they're going next. Of course, the episode will end with Philip going to Nathaniel, who's in a bad way, telling him that he's found the one. I found the one. Come and see. So finally, Nathaniel, after his can anything good come out of Nazareth, goes and sees Jesus, and Jesus tells him that I did. I saw you when you were under the fig tree, and all of that encounter goes. Very, very biblical scene. So that was really, uh, really nice to see. So next episode, episode three, appears like they're going to go up into Syria to have an encounter with John the Baptist. So we'll see if that's what actually takes place. Some strengths from the episode. Philip's character. We really see his character develop, and we really see Matthew's character start to come along. Philip is an encourager of Matthew. He knows that Peter gives Matthew a hard time, so he encourages him, and he has this line that's fantastic. He says, "People want to remember you for your past, but now we're different." Right? And he recognizes the difference as being Jesus. And then there are also these little nuggets of things that show up in these people's work. So a verse that will show up in Matthew's gospel, it's kind of interesting to see how this stuff is playing out. Like Philip plants a seed for a verse, in other words, where he tells Matthew, "Hey, was it hard for you to leave?" And Matthew says, "It should have been. I had everything, but it wasn't." And Philip says to him, "You gave everything up to keep it. You gave everything up to keep it. And Matthew chapter 10, right? Whoever does not take his cross and follow me is not worthy of me, and whoever finds his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake uh, will find it. So you start to see these little seeds. And again with Peter, right? Jesus recognizes that Peter kind of has a short temper and is kind of a loose cannon at some point. And they keep bringing up this word soon, soon, soon. And Jesus says soon. Now, what is that word? How long is soon? Is it a day? Is it a year? Is it 1,000 years? And he says, why don't you ask my Father about 1,000 years? And we find in 2 Peter, in his book, where he says, do not overlook this one fact, beloved, that with the Lord 1 day is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is a day. So you can kind of, again, he says that the goal of this series is to drive you into the scriptures. And again, I'll say, as long as you're not using this series as the scriptures and it's driving you back to the scriptures, what a fantastic thing it is. There's this other scene with Philip and Matthew where Matthew is trying to explain how he feels being different. And he draws a circle in the ground. He said, this is the circle. This is everybody in the whole world. And he makes a point outside of the circle. And he says, this is me. This is where I am in regards to everybody else. And you get this quote, Jesus chose you. And that's all that matters. And so what a powerful episode it is as far as the gospel is concerned. It was very, 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 very good from there. One final strength is that they continue to get the geography correct. Caesarea Philippi, where they wind up. It actually looks like the camera pans to an artist's depiction of what Caesarea Philippi looked like. That's sitting right at Caesarea Philippi. It almost looks identical to that picture, and I wonder if they just kind of zoomed in real close to that. But everything looks good. There was one place I thought they said they were at Beit Shean, there in the middle, which it looked like they were out in the wilderness. Beit Shean was a huge, city where the Greeks inhabited and then the Romans inhabited. So I must have misheard there. As far as weaknesses to the episode, look, if you know what you're going to get going into it, okay, this is the kind of episode that I would, knowing what it is, this is the kind of episode that I would expect it to be. If it's called The Chosen and we're focused on the disciples, this is the kind of stuff you want to see. There's the one biblical episode, right? There's the one biblical account with Jesus calling Philip and calling Nathaniel. But this interaction with the disciples, it's as long as we're not taking that necessarily as scriptures, but helping us to see them as real people, it was really, really, really well done. The other weakness, I guess, that some people may not be able to get over again is that we've already seen the Samaritan woman at the well, which is John chapter 4, but here we are backing up to John chapter 1, right? All of this stuff with Philip and Nathaniel happens in John chapter 1, so we're a little bit out of order. And, the creator of the series has said that some of the stuff would have been combined. I don't know that he's necessarily said things would be out of order, but that's a pretty big jump from John chapter 4 all the way back into John chapter 1. But for the sake of the story, it is what it is. They talked quite a bit after the show. I did not watch that. He said he had some kind of announcement. I don't know when episode 3 is going to come out. I could probably do a little bit of research there and figure that out. But I'll keep rolling with these as soon as the episodes are out. I look forward to it. I look forward to the continued character development to see how this rift between Matthew and Peter works itself out. There are still a couple of disciples that we have not been introduced to. I know we have not been introduced to Judas Iscariot, and we have not been introduced to Simon the Zealot. I don't know. I can't remember. I didn't count to see if there were 9 or 10 present, but there may be one more who we haven't been introduced to. But I think it's only Simon the Zealot and Judas Iscariot. But I could be wrong there, and I very, very likely am, as I have been in the past. But enjoy the series. for what it is. And again, it's I don't know, good things to say about this episode. So enjoy it, and we'll see you next time.